She's real nice, Clark. Real nice. We're finally starting this project. It's been here for about 3 months. Customer's been pretty patient. I don't think he expected it to take this long, and I don't think that he expected it to cost this much. But that's a part of any project, and I'm going to show you why. The hardest part of a job like this is looking up the parts and spending the time to do the research to figure out what it is that you need. So the cab of this truck is off of a 78 F350, but the frame is off of a 73 model Ford. It's the skinny frame, not the wide frame. From what I'm told, these trucks only came out in a 2-wheel drive, and they have converted it to a 4-wheel drive using a Highboy Dana 44 high pinion and a Divorce NP205 transfer case. This truck came here as a project that was at another shop for 3 years, and there was an ordeal, and he picked it up. So it got halfway transformed into a 4-wheel drive, but never finished. It don't even have a fuel tank in it. So I had to figure out how to put a fuel tank in it. I can't put a fuel tank in it for the narrow frame model truck because it goes right here, and the cross member in that transfer case is in the way. And I can't put a regular style for a 78 Ford back there because the frame is not wide enough. So what I'm having to do is use a 78 model tank, turn it sideways, and I'll have to make brackets to make it work. But just that issue right there took a lot of research to figure out. When I first checked out this truck, I found that the gear ratios in the front and the rear, they didn't match. So whoever put those in, they just put in some junkyard axles and rolled with it, never even checked the gear ratio. So we're going to be doing a gear ratio swap in the rear. And they're in very bad shape. You can see all the sludge in here. All the axle tubes are full of rust. It's the same way up front almost. It's not as bad as back here. When we drained this out and pulled the axles out, just water ran out of them. Another issue we ran into, this came in on a rollback. It was never driven, never anything. Rolled straight off the rollback. We went to pull it in this garage, and it wouldn't turn. The gearbox was completely locked up. Well, when I started looking at the gearbox, the frame has been cut to fit the gearbox. So this is not the gearbox that came off of this frame. So I had to do the research to figure out what gearbox this was so that I could order a new one. We got that fixed, drove it in here, and the intermediate shaft on the steering column broke pulling it in here. So now I had to research the intermediate shaft to figure out what that size was, how many splines it was, the length that it was, and order one. This truck came, like I said, incomplete. It didn't have any drive shafts, so I had to measure everything and get them ordered. Every seal on it almost was leaking. We already pulled out this front diff, have it all disassembled completely because the axle seals were leaking. The transfer case seals were leaking. The rear tail shaft seal was leaking. Transmission pan was leaking. Yeah, everything was leaking. Whoever did the previous work just pulled out junkyard parts and put it in here. Going somewhere that says they can do it cheap is not always the best. And I don't know if that was the situation. And that's basically the current situation of the vehicle. We have everything tore apart, gears out. We have bearings, seals out for the transfer case. There's the broken steering shaft. We got everything tore apart. Took me a long time to source all of the parts, but got it all figured out. Everything should be here tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be putting this thing back together, put the drive shafts in it. There's still mysteries with the motor and transmission. Hopefully everything goes as it should and it all works, but we haven't touched the motor and transmission yet, so we don't know. Fingers crossed he don't have to spend more money.